Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Genesis Mindset. So, things are getting really, really spicy this week with the SEC. And as a person who is a holder of HEX and pulsechain, and obviously PulseX, it was something that was very concerning. I did release an emergency episode the other day, and I wanted to just expand on that because I have done more of a deep dive. And I noticed a few things about my own mind as I was doing this deep dive. So I wanted to actually express what I found and express the mechanics behind how the mind actually operates under these circumstances. And hopefully, because we're now in the midst of this experience, you can actually directly see how you're responding to it with your mind and your emotions and how you can actually overcome it. So the whole objective here is to really help you master your emotions quicker than it took me to master mine in these particular circumstances. So as I have mentioned in previous episodes, meditation is a fantastic tool for me to actually help me eliminate those minds of fear and doubt and uncertainty. However, there's also the fact that you just really need to go through it. Time is a thing, and obviously meditation is another tool that can really help you master those emotions. But at the end of the day, the emotions do happen, and it's a consequence of cause and effect. So just like when you eat junk food, if you eat a packet of chips and a burger, your stomach is not going to feel so great afterwards. You know this. You know how you feel after eating junk food. It's the same thing with your mind. If something happens, doesn't matter how pure your mind is going to respond to that effect. The cause is what's happening out there. The effect is what's occurring in your mind. Now, the power of meditation, for example, is to be able to disassociate yourself from that emotion and just objectively observe it for what it is and disconnect from it. Having said that, when you actually do a deep dive into trying to understand what all of this is around the SEC and Richard Heart and everything that's going on with DeFi, you read positive things and negative things, and they elicit different kinds of emotional responses in you. And again, it's up to you to be able to disconnect yourself from that. And I'll be honest, it can sometimes not be easy. Sometimes it's not easy. The deeper you dive into one particular stream, the deeper and darker things can get. But it also made me realize, and I have known this, but it's something that I really wanted to share in this episode, is what is the truth? Is there any truth out there? And can we actually ever find the truth related to any of these subjects? So without further ado, I am going to get into this episode. Okie dokie. So welcome to episode 9 of the Genesis Mindset. So this is mindset for investing, trading, and life. Genesis Mindset. There we go. And this is personal opinion only. This is not financial advice. Please understand this. This is not financial advice. And I do want to present myself as someone who is pro crypto, pro decentralized finance. Yes, hand on my heart, I'm a big investor in HEX, pulsechain, and pulsex. So that's why I'm deeply interested in this, and it had a big impact on me. That's why I'm coming out with multiple episodes in relation to this. But I have in the past held many different kinds of tokens: Algorand, XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Mana, Sandbox, Illuvium, all kinds of different tokens that I can't even remember now because there's like possibly up to 100. So I'm really into crypto. Just at the minute, I have a heavy weighting in HEX, pulsechain, and pulsex, but it's obviously a very divisive token. But there has been some developments on that recently as well, which is really nice to see. So let's get into it. So this episode, I'll just make this smaller. Can I make this smaller? So this episode, here we go, 1,000 to a million, SEC versus DeFi and the quest for truth. So how to manage your mind. So what I want to do now is actually go into a little dive into what basically the kind of how I perceive this whole scenario. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Game of Thrones, then maybe skip the next minute or two, because I'm going to go into the Red Wedding. And I see all of this as this is the Red Wedding. This is just like the Red Wedding to me. You've got the SEC who've just come from behind, started backstabbing everybody in crypto. So first they went after Ripple. They took Ripple to court, and Ripple has now, the judges declared that is not a security. And this is, everybody, this is fantastic news. This is brilliant news. And BitBoy Crypto today on one of Corey Costa's streams, both wonderful gentlemen in the space, both good united forces, really trying to connect the space and be voices for decentralized finance in general. Like, BitBoy points out clearly that they can, if they have a utility, they cannot be classified as a security. He's adamant about this. Whether or not that's 100% true, I can't say. And that's the whole point that I want to get to in all of this. But I think that there's especially now with XRP, there's a lot to be said for that. Whether or not it can be classified as a security, anything with a utility. So HEX, for example, has a utility. Now, one of the interesting things is, this is where everybody says Richard is a genius and he's ahead of the game. And the more that I see, the more I'm like, I can't help but agree with that sentiment. I really can't help but agree with that sentiment, as neutral as I wanted to be about him. But basically, recently, HEX has been changed from staking to, I think it's minting now, or no, mining. It's mining now, HEX mining, which is what you do on the HEX website contract, or you can do it through the ICOSA front end. And essentially, staking can be classed as falling under the Howey test, which means it can be classified as a security. So this is an issue, but now it's been changed to mining. And really, this is one of the things that Richard has always spoken about. You do your minting, you do your work, nobody else does the work for you. And this is something where it's very clever. And even if you do a deep dive into the SEC document against Richard Heart, there is no mention of Ponzi scheme, there is no mention of scam, there is no mention of pyramid scheme. So there's no mention of those things in the document, which is very, very poorly worded and poorly put together. And then, so this is kind of stage one. You know, you had the SEC coming after Ripple, and then you got Gary Gensler calling everybody hucksters, fraudsters, Ponzi schemes. You know, he's reading from a document because he doesn't know the next word. Hucksters, I got to check the document. Fraudsters, Ponzi schemes. Like, this guy is, yeah, I really try and be accepting. And you know what? I see him for what he is. To me, he is just a guy who represents the people behind him. He's just a mask. He's a mask of the people that are behind him. So he's getting paid to do what he needs to do to represent the people that he's representing. And it's as simple as that. So there's no point hating on Gary Gensler. He's just a human being doing his job, but he's doing a terrible job. And what he represents is what we're all against here in cryptocurrency and decentralized finance. So he's come out calling everything hucksters, fraudsters, scam artists. Then you had Coinbase. They went after Coinbase. They went after Binance. And then they started listing 10 tokens. So you had all these 10 tokens also getting stabbed in the back by the SEC. You know, Cardano, Solana, Polygon, Matic. You had Decentraland, Sandbox, Atom, Cody. There was a couple of others. And now, of course, you've got Richard Heart, the SEC going after Richard Heart. Now, one of the interesting things is SEC has been doing this for a long time, trying to get money out of people, trying to find them to get money out of them, basically just to run their organization. And this is essentially how governments operate. So with the SEC now coming after Richard Heart, the whole HEX community has banded together. And this is something that Corey pointed out at the end of his stream as well, and how wonderful it is. But the thing about communities is communities are united by certain principles. They're united by things that bring them together. They're united by commonalities. Now, the commonality here is if they go after Richard Heart, they're attacking all of our bags, so we unite. So the whole debate between EHEX and PHEX disappears. The whole debate over whether you should have multiple coins or just pulsechain, pulsex on pulsechain disappears. Everybody is united because it all affects all of us in the one community. This is how communities are. And I want to just express this as, again, I really try to be neutral and unbiased. And when I hear things like, oh, the HEX community is the best community on the planet, I have to say, I hope I don't get any hate for this. I disagree, not in the sense that I think it's a bad community, but I just think it is a community that has the same characteristics as every other community. It has intelligent people, it has unintelligent people, it has loud-spoken people, it has quiet-spoken people, it has followers, it has people who are on the forefront, it has people who are developing. And even there was a debate the other night, which I will go into a little later, people talking about the smartest developers or the most stupid. Like, all of these things are just perceptions. They are just what they are. There is no best, there is no worst. It is just what it is. And it's a community that's united by commonalities. And that's the thing that I really wanted to emphasize here. And so now they've gone after our boy, they've gone after Richard Heart. And so now we've all come together, and I mean, everybody now, the reason why I use Game of Thrones is because this whole cryptocurrency thing is like Game of Thrones. It's this power grab. Who can control the cryptocurrency? Who can control the DeFi? And then beyond that, who can control finance? You've got fiat legacy system against this new system that's emerging through cryptocurrency and the blockchain. Now, you have people who are like, oh, ha, Richard Heart, you're getting what you deserve. Unfortunately, this is karma. This is also cause and effect. This is the consequence of his arrogance. This is the consequence of his belittling people. This is the consequence of the outrage marketing. And even if you want to come out and say, okay, I'm humble now. I remember in some streams, love Richard Heart, but when I remember in streams when I'd even typed to him and I saw him read the comment and screw up his face, and I've heard him say it. You should be humble. Don't tell me to be humble. I'm out here doing this and this. And now he's changed his tact and he's saying he's humble. Now this seems disingenuous. He has those humility, he has those humble qualities in him. If you go back to his pre-Hex streams, he is humble. He has the humility in him. But the characteristics he was exhibiting after that, because he's exhibiting those characteristics so much, it's in his mind. So because he's consuming that and expressing it, then he's becoming it. This is the thing about how we live inside of our mind. So he was becoming that, and he was getting rejected by outside communities. People within Hex, some people liked it, some people didn't. Again, it's always divided. You've got the pros, you've got the cons. But now I think really, I think this is a moment that I have my fingers crossed. This is what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping Richard takes on the SEC. I'm hoping he doesn't just pay a fine and or not respond. I'm hoping he actually takes on the SEC and makes them look like crap. I really want that for the sake of cryptocurrency and decentralized finance as a whole, because enough is enough. So as you all know now with this SEC, so many things have gone on. What are some of the consequences of this thing already in the community, how it's banded together? Check this out. So you have Uniswap. They delisted Hex. So the Hex community banded it together. Cancel Uniswap. So we started cancel Uniswap. And on Trustpilot, look at all these one-star reviews that have happened in the space of a couple of days. This is the power of community, and this is quite nice. When I took this screenshot, it was 555. It would be great if it just stayed at this forever, as like a sign-off by the Hex community, because really, it becomes, how is it decentralized if you then delist Hex, which was the token that actually popularized you, and then there's Ponzi's and scams on there abundantly. I mean, I've personally been scammed on there and sent tokens to wrong addresses, and like, where are they for that? They're not there for that. They're not there to protect the people for that, but for this they are, and there's no evidence yet. Like, they're just covering their skin. Like, it's not a good look for them, and there's so many other things out there. So really, I would encourage people to start using other things. There's 1inch, AutoX, there's all these different things. Go on Twitter, have a look at it, check out what people are talking about. So this is how the community is banding together to start fighting it. So this is a really beautiful thing to see. I would love to see this in the wider community. Again, there's still the division between like the haters of Richard Heart and the likers of Richard Heart. If he fights against it, then we should all be standing behind him. That's all I have to say on that, because I think that would be a wonderful thing for decentralized finance and cryptocurrency as a whole. So as I dug deeper into this case, this was one of the things that I really listened to. This was a really good talk. It was a 3-hour stream. You had Martin Shkreli, who's gone through some issues with the SEC. He was in prison for 7 years. And it's this guy, Mario Norfolk, very neutral guy, wonderful guy. You also had on there Scott Melker. You had some big names, Ran Nuna. There was Rags for Riches, Brandon from Rags to Riches, representing the Hex community, funding Jim. We also had a couple of other hexicans in there, a different range of hexicans, to be honest. Then you had Eric Wall on there, who's like, Eric Wall is like, he's like the girlfriend of Hex that you always break up with and remake up with and break up with, and they talk bad behind each other's back. And, you know, this is the thing about the truth, right? When you listen to something like this and you don't have the knowledge yourself and you're trying to gain knowledge, and you listen to this and you have the takeaways and people are saying, he's going to prison. He's absolutely going to prison. That elicits some fear in you. It's like, I don't want Richard Heart to go to prison. 1, I feel bad for him. And 2, that's not good for the token. then I rethought about it. I thought, okay, just as a side note, if he did go to prison, then the whole argument around the OA, the whole fear around the OA and people thinking that it's him, it disappears. It's completely gone. So actually the OA just becomes this completely neutral, stagnant force, just like Satoshi Nakamoto. So it's actually, ironically, one of the best things I think that could actually happen to the ecosystem. But this is the thing. People are talking like they have factual evidence, like they know he's going to prison, but he can't actually go to prison. It's not brought to him by the Department of Justice. He's only going to get a fine. So he either pays the fine or he doesn't pay the fine. Like, it's not something that he can go to prison for. And then people are coming out and saying he's going to prison. You had, what's his name? Jack Levin coming on there, I think, saying he's going to prison. You know, these guys talk like they know what they're talking about, but they actually have no idea. And this is what all of us are like, even myself. I'm only presenting to you what I've learned, what I've put into my mind. Now I'm spitting it out of my mind and trying to deliver it to you. I'm not saying what I'm saying is the truth. This is simply just my perspective from my own incomplete mind. And this is how all people are. And this is how you actually have to take everything as just an incomplete source of information. Everybody is just trying to build a framework of understanding from within their incomplete mind. And this is the actual problem. So I would recommend listening to this. It was actually really interesting. I was listening to it while I was at the gym, and I listened to it before I went to bed. It was actually really, really quite interesting to hear the different perspectives, but take it with a grain of salt, because people on there are talking like they know, and they don't actually fully comprehend, and they don't fully know. Next, this one here. This was a fantastic stream. Rags, Brandon from Rags to Riches. Like him, the way he represented the community and funding Jim, Gary, funding Jim, and Brandon represented the community was fantastic. It brought Scott Melker, who I think Scott has been neutral, but also critical of HEX. And that comes from, you can see, by his lack of understanding. This is how it is. If you don't understand something, then what you see, if you just see the negative things and you'll parrot those negative things, and if those negative things trigger what you have in your mind, okay, there's an OA, okay, then this is a centralized authority, then this is no good. This is how the mind is. But once you start to add more information into that incomplete mind, then you start to see, you start to add all the pieces together and start to formulate a different opinion. So I thought the perspectives presented in this video were really, really good. So they broke down what HEX was to Scott, and Scott was open-minded, and he had been waiting. Richard had been trying to go. I don't know if Richard specifically asked to go on his show or if the community requested it, but Scott, in that Mario's Twitter Spaces, had said that he basically denied going on a show with Richard. He didn't want to. And he mentioned in this that he didn't know what he was going to say because he didn't have any talking points. Now, obviously, he's got more information. He wanted to learn more about it. So I think this was really, really good. So they covered it really well. At the end, actually, the big criticism Scott ended up having against it was the OA. And it's very interesting because the concept of the OA is probably the one thing that the ones who really know about HEX, that's the most powerful part about it. And the ones who don't like HEX, that's the worst thing about it. They call it a scam. They call it whatever because of this, because they think it's Richard Heart. This is very fascinating phenomena that for the people who understand it and trust it, it's the best thing. For the people who don't, it's the worst thing. So I want to actually do a deep dive into what the OA is and what the T-shares are, what HEX is all about in the next Genesis episode. Also, just to get some pure clarity for myself, I want to actually break it down, the pros and the cons about what it actually means to have an OA, to make it very clear, because I really do fall behind the ethos of a centralized figure, a centralized authority controlling it, because whether or not it's one person or a collective group of people, it's still something centralized that's controlling the decentralization. And I know Bitcoin says that it's purely decentralized. That's to some degree true, but there's also a small percentage of people who own a large percentage of Bitcoin. So in that sense, you could argue, is it centralized? I mean, where do you draw the line? And this is, again, the issue with truth, whether it's decentralization or centralization. It's like, no, it's centralization. No, it's decentralization. Neither of those is purely 100% correct. The truth sits somewhere in the middle. The truth sits somewhere in the middle of everything: communism or democracy, liberal or labor, left-wing or right-wing. The truth is somewhere in the middle. That's the whole point of life. It's not this or that, but this is how humans are. we accumulate things into our mind, we spit it out saying we know what we're talking about, and this causes all the problems, all the wars, all the conflict, all the division. It's a consequence of the human mind. So this stuff that I started to hear was more positive, and it settled my mind. But then I had another friend who shared with me this particular Twitter feed from a guy called Truth Labs, who basically did a deep dive on following Richard Hart's origin address, or Richard Hart's original address, and how he's basically, with every major exploit. You should read the thread, have a look into it. But basically that Richard Hart is cycling funds through HEX and getting people to cycle their exploiter funds through his chains, and that he's taken money out to buy things, and there's apparently all this evidence on here. And I looked at this, and again, I started to look at this and I went, and then how do we know how directly true this is? How do we actually know? And then I raised the question to myself, is it a problem if Richard actually did take some profits from HEX, for example, with one of his wallets and spend it on Louis Vuitton? Is that an issue? No. If I really think about it to myself personally, no. What about the sacrifice money? Is it an issue? No. The reason why I think it's not is because it was all done for the outrage marketing. It onboarded so many more people into PulseX, for example. So then it's like, is it really an issue because it's a form of marketing? For me, for my mind, no, it actually wasn't an issue. It actually was something that was, it's okay. It's not, I was actually surprised that it didn't bother me whatsoever. But the point is, whenever I'm reading something negative, this also triggered my mind. It created a sense of negativity in my mind. Then I kind of looked at it, it hit those emotions, and I expressed it out to some friends to see what they had to say, and their comments came back to me, and then I sort of reflected on it, and I thought, it's not so bad. At the end of the day, whatever happens, whether it's good or bad, what is the truth? Is anyone ever truly going to know what the 100% truth is? No. No one's ever really going to know from within their mind. That's the whole point. So really, is there truth? So you have all these different sources of truth that we're getting it from. So authority figures, centralized figures like the government. So the SEC, everybody, people who are pro-government will say whatever the SEC is doing is correct, but are they? Who's behind the SEC? You have centralized finance. You have the Federal Reserve, who is a private company. They're a private company. These are things that have been forgotten over time, but they are a private company of some of the biggest banks who dominated the European banking system and took advantage of wars and have continued taking advantage of wars. So the Federal Reserve is not a benevolent force. I'm not saying they're malevolent, but they're certainly not benevolent. They're just a force that's out to look for themselves. They are a private company. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that. They are not a government agency. So really everything is bought out, even in governments. The SEC is bought out. People, the donors are bought, like donors pay for, look at Sam Bankman-Fried. He donated all this money to the Democrats and he's getting away scot-free. He's getting away scot-free with fraud. Like what he did was wrong and he's getting away with it because he's bought out the government. Now, every form of politics is just like this. That's why it's like, oh, no, it's got to be Joe Biden or it's got to be Donald Trump. It's like, honestly, who gives a shit? At the end of the day, they are just the puppets to the puppet masters behind them. I'm sorry to say, but that's what it is. Like they might have certain principles, but the people who pay for them are the ones, they have to represent those people as well. That's a consequence of the fact that the world we live in now is dominated by money. Money and the financial system is the religion of the 21st century. And so that's why now we're in this apocalyptic religious war. Then you look at other sources of truth from everyone else, like friends, family, news, whatever, wherever you're getting it from, YouTube. You have anti-sources, people who say, no, this is wrong, it's negative, this is not true, this, Richard Hart did this, he did that, he did this. So you have all this information here, which is anti. Then you've got the pro, who's like, Richard Hart did this, he's done this, he's done this, he's done that, he's done this, he's done this. It's all incomplete. Whatever they've looked at, that's how they see the world. Whatever they've accumulated into their mind, that's how they see that particular person. That's how they see that particular cryptocurrency. Whatever they have into their mind, then there's confirmation bias. You'll just keep looking for that information to suit your own perspective. This is how the human mind is. This is how the incomplete human mind is. And then what about from myself? Is there any truth to my own self? What's happening in me, my emotions? No, there's actually not any truth. It's just cause and effect. If I read something negative and it makes me feel negative, is that true? What is that? What is that? Oh, there's this sensation of depression. Should I then get stuck in that depression and feel depressed for the rest of my life? No, it's just like a cloud. It passes through. You just observe it. Oh, okay. It's just cause and effect. It's because I ate this junk food and now I feel like crap. Same thing. Same thing with the mind. So yes, it's just like junk food. Whatever you put into there, that's what's going to come out of your mind. So this also is an incomplete mind. So I have to emphasize this because to me, this is something that is so, this is the whole point of what this Genesis mindset is all about. It's all about the fact that humans are living inside of their incomplete world, their incomplete mind world. From the moment we were born with the habits that we've inherited from our parents and our ancestors. So it's all embedded in your DNA. So just like you look like your parents, you have the same mind traits as they do. So, or you have the potential for those mind traits rather. So for example, even with Siamese twins, the same situation, one of the Siamese twins doesn't accept this, gets outraged by it. The other one is just calm, no worries, just goes with the flow. Whatever they've inherited in their habits, in their DNA from their parents and their ancestors, that's how they then start to develop their view of the world. So then they start going through the world, start taking all these things into their mind, and they just have this little mind world. So when you close your eyes, you can think about where you grew up, your primary school, your high school, your job, even now the room that you're sitting in, that's your mind world. So everything that you've recorded into there, everything that you've programmed into there, you're just like a robot is what's coming out of your mouth. That's what's coming out of your mouth. And that is incomplete. This is why there's division. This is why there's no unity. This is why communities are divided. This is why there's all the problems in the world. This is why there's crime. This is why there's murder. This is why there's rape. This is why there's hate. This is why there's racism. This is why there's all these divisions in the world because of this. Because of this. This is why there's no wisdom in yourself because of this. So you have to actually burst that bubble and come out of it. And that is the truth. When you actually come out of your mind world and then you live in the world, but nobody is living like this. Only a very small percentage of people on the planet are living like this, where they've escaped their mind world and they're living in the world, as the universe. When you're living as the universe, you're not living as this individual being. You're living as the entirety of the universe. So that's the whole point of life, to actually live as that and live forever as that. So Plato's allegory of the cave. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, but this is a fantastic thing. So this is, if you've never heard it, how did my hand go up? If you've never heard it, basically Plato outlines a scenario where there's these guys chained against a wall, and their whole entire life they've grown up chained against this wall, and there's a fire, and they're in a cave, and there's a fire behind, and there's a pathway behind them. They cannot see the figures, they cannot see the fire, they cannot see nothing but the shadows on the wall. So their reality is the shadow on the wall. They cannot even see their own bodies. When they stand up and the fire and the light of the flame and the light that's coming into the cave projects their shadow onto the wall, that's what they think they are. They cannot put their head down to see their body. So they think they are a shadow existence. They think existence is shadow play on a cave wall. That's what they think reality is. And this is how the human mind is. What you put in is what you see. So this actually is a timeless example of how the human mind is incomplete, totally incomplete. So that's why we actually have to come out of that mind world. You have to come out of it. Then once you start accumulating knowledge, then you actually start to have wisdom, and then you can see the truth in everything. You can see, decentralization, yes, there is an element of truth to it. Centralization, yes, there is an element of truth to it. You don't get attached to one perspective or the other. You can start to see the truth in everything only when you're outside of your mind world. Not only that, you start to love everybody naturally. You start to accept everything naturally because your mind becomes the mind of nature, the mind of the universe. So that's what this is all about. And thank you very much, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. And I would just ask, if you liked it, please like, subscribe, hit the bell button. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave it in the comment section or send me a question. Look for me on, I've got a website. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I'm on all the social platforms. So follow me. I try and help everybody with their mindset. That's what this is all about. I'll lower the hand there. Try to help everybody with their mindset. That's what I've devoted my life to. So this whole HEX thing, at the end of the day, my life is taken care of. I'm a full-time volunteer. I live in a meditation center. You can say it's kind of like an ashram situation. So I don't pay any rent. I live here. I get taken good care of. I get what I need to eat. I don't have to pay any rent or any bills. So money is not an issue for me. But I can't go on holidays. I can't go out drinking. I don't have that kind of money to do those kinds of things. Cryptocurrency helps me out. So I don't want HEX and pulsechain and pulsex to go to shit. I don't want cryptocurrency to die, because my sources of enjoyment come from there. But beyond that as well, the things that I want to achieve with that money, those are very minor. If I don't get those things, I need those things to kind of like loosen up a little bit. But the whole objective of earning this money is to now help people by building more meditations, by spreading the method and helping people understand that if you come out of your mind world, life is okay. Life is brilliant. Everything just works out fine. You're living as your true self. And that's the reason why you're born, to actually live as your true self. And so I don't want anything to go down. So yes, it bothered me, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I know I'll get taken care of anyway. So if it all goes to zero, it's like, okay, no problem. I can just focus more on my work here as a volunteer and just spend my life just helping people. And that's totally okay as well. But if not, let's work together. Let's work together. Let's band together. Let's stop fighting. And I know, even as I say this, actually, it's not going to happen, because it's just, people are going to fight. People are going to argue. This is just how the human mind is. But it would be nice if it touches somebody's heart and it makes sense to somebody to at least question themselves when they're going to be negative and put that negativity out into the world, to at least step back and go, hang on a minute, is this actually serving any positive purpose? And actually, before I finish then, I actually want to show this little video here by our good mate. One more little video by our good mate, Dollar Cost Crypto. And this is why we're all in it together. So let's just have a quick listen to this.
Let me tell you the real fucking reason why they're coming after us, right? They took a fat L on XRP. They took another fat L on SBF. They're coming after the HEX ecosystem, pulsechain and pulsex, because they're hoping for a settlement or a loss so they can come after Ethereum as a security. And shame on every single crypto person out here I don't care, on YouTube, crypto, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere, TikTok. Shame on you, motherfuckers. Because literally, if something negatively that calls HEX a security, what's going to end up happening is they're going to use that as a jumping stone to make Ethereum a fucking security and hold off the Ethereum ETF, spot ETF. You guys are not seeing the game they're running on you guys right now. Not you guys, but some of the new watchers and listeners that are subscribing right now and watching. Like, this is what's going on. Gary Gensler is trying to take crypto down. He is enemy number one. Let me tell you.
All right. So as you can see, guys, it's not just about these individual tokens. It's like anything. The divisions are there, and we get obsessed with these divisions between the individual tokens, but it's about the whole space as a whole. At the end of the day, yes, we're here for money, but I don't know about you guys, but I'm also here for the principle of it. I'm also here for the fact that the centralized system, the old financial system, is not working as it is. It doesn't mean it should collapse and end and everything like that. I believe in the future that somewhere it's going to be somehow a unity between this and the decentralized system. But right now, if they start to attack certain cryptocurrencies and make them securities, it's just like Miguel from Dollar Cost Crypto says, it ends up being a stepping stone towards more bad moves for the cryptocurrency system in general. So what are we here for? I started here for the decentralization. That was the thing that got me excited. I got into Ripple. That was the thing that got me excited. Decentralized finance. Ripple, oh, they're against the banks. It's a new system. It got me excited. So think about what you were here for. Think about the future of cryptocurrency, and let's just love one another, eh? Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.